get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Oh, get on board the Bernier bus train.
Good evening, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernier Bus Show. Dear, comfortable, older Democrats with landline phones, we need to talk. Recent polling indicates that affluent, highly educated Democrats over 50 are still in the courting process when it comes to choosing a primary candidate. Back in September, Crystal Ball of the Hill opined that Democrats were on track to nominate Elizabeth Warren and then lose to Donald Trump. Since then, she has noticed that wine-track Democrats have been fickle, not able to decide between Mayor Pete, Elizabeth, and others favored by corporate news media. Of all the commentators on my recommended list, Crystal is one of the most consistent when it comes to pointing out the clear disparity in the demographics of Sanders supporters versus Warren supporters. She has pointed out the class differences, education and income, between A, Sanders voters who have remained loyal to Bernie, and B, Warren supporters who seem to be keeping their options open. The most recent Emerson poll bears out Crystal's conclusions. When asked if they would definitely vote for their candidate or if they could change their mind, Sanders supporters are the most committed to their preferred candidate, as 71% of his supporters said they will definitely vote for him. 60% of Biden supporters, 46% of Warren supporters, and 31% of Buttigieg supporters said the same. Sanders continues to hold a strong lead with younger voters in the primary. Among voters under 50, Sanders received 37% support, followed by Warren with 22%, Biden with 15%, and Yang with 7%. Among voters 50 and over, Biden continues to lead with 44% support, followed by Warren with 16%, Sanders with 13%, and Buttigieg with 12%. When asked if they would support the Democratic nominee for president, regardless if he or she was not their first choice in the primaries, the majority of respondents said they would, 68%. 93% of Buttigieg supporters would vote blue, no matter who, 80% for Warren supporters, 77% of Biden supporters. The least likely to support the nominee of the top candidates were Sanders supporters, with only 61% reporting that they were very likely to vote blue no matter who. The polling matches what Crystal has been saying for months. Wine-track voters are less likely to consider Bernie as their first choice than are young people and lower-income, demographically mixed voters in the labor force. This is what we need to talk about. You wine-track voters seem to be hoping for someone better than Bernie to come along. As you look back over the last 40 to 50 years, you have trusted the Democrats to take care of your economic interests while signaling that your primary social concerns will be acknowledged. Now, we don't want to denigrate those social concerns. We all, on the left, honor them. But you want your candidates to support gay marriage and abortion rights, but are not very excited about having your kids bused to inner-city schools or having inner-city kids bused to your kids' schools. You may say something noble about income inequality at your school's PTA meeting, or maybe to another parent at one of your lavishly produced school musical productions. But when it comes right down to it, you genuinely believe that you deserve your lot in life and the people who live in less affluent neighborhoods deserve theirs. Yes, I am calling you out. I believe that the reason you are waiting for someone better than Bernie to come along is that you would prefer your politicians to keep paying lip service to social economic injustice while continuing to ensure that you are able to keep your privileged place near the top of the economic ladder. I believe that you're afraid of the true shakeup that Bernie's revolution would cause. You seem okay with billionaires controlling things as long as you are allowed to use your social advantages to maintain your comfortable lifestyle. Let's listen to what Mark Cuban says about that.
You can't have the nice things that people in his class have. Take a look.
Mark Cuban is here. He has been a capitalist his whole life, and he actually started with nothing and became a billionaire because of hard work and just smarts.
And luck.
Yeah.
And luck. There's always luck, of course. So tell me about that. What do you think about how 2020 is shaping up and capitalism versus socialism?
Well, I mean, capitalism is going to win. There's no question about that. But look, I'm never against open discourse. That's what makes this country great. You know, people being able to convey their opinions. Now, I'm not going to agree with all of them. Socialism just doesn't work. Medicare for all, I believe healthcare is a right, but you're not going to all of a sudden create an environment. Well, let's just talk about her plan, right?
Yeah. You had a Twitter battle with
her. Yeah, not even with her, right? I think she just let me go. But you know, if you look at her plan, there's just things that just have no chance of passing, you know, and things that just don't make sense. Like, so part of her plan says employers will take the money that we were paying for insurance and put that into the payment for Medicare for all for their employees. Now, she had the choice of saying, let's increase payroll taxes by a certain amount, which would have been the more viable way. But what she chose was something called a head tax, which says for my companies, any company that has more than 50 employees, rather than paying a higher payroll tax, we're going to charge you the average of the last 3 years plus an inflator each year for each one of your employees. Now, that means that in her mind that we'll be paying $7,500 to pick a number per year per employee. Now, for somebody who's making $200,000 a year, okay, that's not bad. But what's the impact on someone who's making $10 an hour or $12 an hour or $30,000 a year?
Right.
If you know, if you have to hire somebody and the payroll cost is, instead of 6.12% or whatever it is, right, you're having to pay $7,500 per year, you're going to have second thoughts.
Slow hiring.
Right, you're going to have second thoughts about hiring that person. Even worse, as you evolve into her plan, you're going to see companies cut payroll benefits because they know if they push their costs down leading into the plan for the calculations, it's going to cost them less per employee, and that's going to create additional problems.
Right.
It's just not thought out.
He's right about that. He's criticizing Elizabeth Warren's plan specifically and calling it socialism. So he's actually telling the truth about Elizabeth Warren's horrible Medicare for all plan. But then the idea, he's also a capitalist to his bones like Elizabeth Warren. What he should notice, what he's not figuring out, is that the reason she's putting up this plan that's awful and won't work and will never pass, he's right about that, is because she doesn't expect it to pass. She doesn't want it to pass. If it actually passed, her donors would go apeshit. Her daughter, who's in the healthcare industry, would go apeshit. That's not going to happen. But the interesting thing is, the reason I flipped here was because he is someone who believes that we all are in the places we deserve to be through his hard work and intelligence and a little bit of luck. He's where he belongs. And you older suburban, let's not use that word, you older, comfortable Democrats also need to realize that you feel the same way. You feel that you are where you belong, and that people who are lower down on the ladder also are where they belong. And some of you secretly hope that you'll end up where Mark Cuban is eventually, and then you can have everything like good health care that he has. Let's go back here to this crux of the matter. The people who won't accept Mark Cuban telling us what to do, Bernie's voter base, they're not shopping around the way Beto's and Buttigieg's and Warren's are. And Biden's, we should say in passing, is pretty stable. But the wine class, the wine track group of voters, they're pretty much shopping around looking for anybody but Bernie, who is, because I don't think they believe that Bernie is going to protect their assets. Especially in the primaries, Sanders supporters know what is at stake. They know that only Bernie intends to deliver on the promise of true hope and change. They know that Bernie intends to be the organizer-in-chief when it comes to mobilizing the workforce to leverage the changes that our economy and our planet desperately need. Bernie's going to stand up to people like Mark Cuban and let him know It's not going to keep going the way it has been for him. Because of this, some of Bernie's supporters have pledged not to vote for a Democrat in the general election if Bernie fails to receive the Democratic nomination. Some of Bernie's supporters are so rabidly committed to the real hope and change that Bernie promises that they intend to vote directly for Donald Trump in the general election if Bernie again is denied the nomination. While that idea may horrify some of us, it is still a verifiable fact. In the crucial swing states in 2016, even though the Bernie or busters were not able alone to take credit for Hillary's defeat, Sanders supporters who voted directly for Donald Trump were. According to the analysis of the 2016 Cooperative Congressional Election Survey, there were enough Bernie or Trump voters in swing states to take credit for Hillary's defeat. While it is true that a huge portion of Bernie's base will not even bother to vote in the general election if Bernie is not still in the race, it is safe to say that most of you wine track voters will hold their noses and vote for Bernie in the general election if he receives the nomination. It also is true that the demographics of young and working class voters often sit out primary elections. That's probably the most important reason for us to have this conversation. Older, affluent voters are much more likely to vote in primary contests than are younger and less affluent voters. With the help of the corporate media and other Hollywood thought leaders, you seem more likely at this point to come around to Bernie later rather than sooner. And that simply won't work if you truly want to defeat Donald Trump. Because of Bernie or Trump voters alone, it is a foregone conclusion that Trump will win in the general election if Bernie is not his opponent. It's a sure thing. So like it or not, when the next landline pollster calls you, the message to deliver to that pollster is that your shopping phase is over and that you have decided to face reality. Because you absolutely cannot accept another 4 years of Donald Trump, please tell pollsters that you will bite the bullet and support Bernie in the primary contests. When other voters see the shift in the polls, they will likely go along with this shift. Bottom line, if you fail to do your part to ensure that Bernie receives the nomination in the first round of voting at the July convention in Milwaukee, then you will have failed your fellow citizens and you will have failed the entire planet.
Get on board the Bernie or bus train. Come get on board the Bernie or bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board